Hey, what is up guys? This is Nishi from MST.TV here, back with another Market Watch episode. Today we're taking a look at a few odd cards from all across the market. Right now, a lot of the attention is on the new Quarter Century Bonanza set, since it's the new big thing that will be coming out this upcoming week. But there are still other things that are happening with the market, some with current meta trends, while other things are happening because of the card's potential applications in the future. We definitely still want to make sure that we're paying attention to those movements that may otherwise go under the radar. Let's get started. Alright, kicking things off, we have Goblin Biker Dug Charger. So of course right now Ryzeal is the best deck in the OCG, as it has been dominating there for some time. At the same time, Goblin Bikers basically haven't been really relevant at all, and basically no one's really paying attention to it. However, just recently Goblin Bikers actually did really well at a tournament that was otherwise dominated by Ryzeal over in the OCG. The Goblin Bikers are an Xyz based deck, and they can eat materials off of Xyz monsters in order to do certain things, but one cool thing is that they can take material off of monsters from either side of the field. Now this means that they actually have a not horrible matchup going into the Ryzeal match, since they can use your opponent's monsters' materials in order to fulfill certain requirements. Now Dug Charger is one of the best cards for Goblin Bikers to see in that matchup, since it can special summon itself by removing a material from anywhere on the field, and then on summon it searches for a Goblin Biker spell or trap card. Really good value off of just the one card. This is a relatively new one that just came out in Phantom Nightmare. For the most part, the ultra rare version of this card has only been $1 or $2. However, over the last few weeks, we've seen this card steadily increasing in price, and it's now sitting up at $5 to $6 per copy. The Quarter Century version has also gone up quite a bit. It was around $25 before, but they're now up to $40 a piece. I don't know if this deck will necessarily be strong enough to be sort of an anti-meta pick once Ryzeal comes around, or if it's just going to be another solid deck in the format. But if Goblin Bikers are a deck that you do want to try out, I definitely recommend picking up a set of this card for around $10 to $12 before Crossover Breakers drops. Speaking of cards that could be good against Ryzeal, the next card we have is Flying Sea. So this is a card that I've seen a number of players talking about as a counter to Ryzeal. The Ryzeal extra deck basically consists entirely of Xyz monsters, and I believe some of the cards lock you into only level and rank 4 monsters. Now in theory, Flying Sea could be a really good side deck card against Ryzeal, since you can summon it to your opponent's side of the field, and since Flying Sea is a level 3, they theoretically wouldn't be able to play at all, even if they chose to put in some generic link monsters because of those restrictions. However, Flying Sea is actually a really underwhelming card against Ryzeal, since it's almost like the deck was designed to play around Flying Sea. The Ryzeal engine itself is able to send Xyz monsters directly from the extra deck to the graveyard, and one of the main cards that they dump that they run multiple copies of is Merill Aggregator, and if Aggregator is sent to the graveyard, it's able to negate the effect of any face-up card on either side of the field, including Flying Sea, and so overall it makes Flying Sea a pretty bad side deck option. Despite that, this card is still trending upwards in price. This used to be a 50-cent card, but the Ultras from the Judgment of the Light Deluxe Edition are now up to $3 per copy on TCG Player. This definitely isn't a card you guys should be all that worried about. I guess you could pick up some commons if you really want to be prepared if someone's not knowing what to do against it, or maybe you want to use them for back in Duelist Alliance format because this card was a very good side deck option against Burning Abyss. But other than that, I'd definitely be looking to offload these while they are getting some attention from the market. Next up, we have Blue Eyes Tyrant Dragon. So this card is an extra deck monster that is of course used in the Blue Eyes deck, which got a structure deck in the OCG that we will be getting here in the TCG in around February. So you special summon this card by tributing a Blue Eyes monster that is equipped with a fusion monster. Pretty easy to do with a new card called Prayers with Eyes of Blue. This card itself is unaffected by traps, and it can attack all of your opponent's monsters once each, as well as place a trap in your spell trap zone at the end of the damage step if this card battled. Now historically, this card hasn't really been used at all, but from looking at some lists of Blue Eyes decks that have done reasonably well over in the OCG recently, this card actually looks like it's used at 1 to 2 copies in the Blue Eyes extra deck. That said, we're starting to see a little bit of movement with it here in the TCG. It was printed as an ultra rare in Battles of Chaos, and then a secret rare in the 2023 tins. Neither version's that expensive right now, each of them only at $1 to $2 each. The thing is, this card was reprinted in the Blue Eyes structure deck itself over in the OCG, so the assumption from everyone is that the card will be reprinted here in the TCG structure deck as well, so it's like there's no point in buying into the card now. You still definitely could though, since the structure deck printing will be the lower rarity printing. It'll probably be a common or a super, and Blue Eyes players do love blinging out their decks, so it might be worth grabbing a couple of secret rares if you can grab them for maybe $1 each. However, don't go too crazy, since for the most part, I don't see players going too crazy for the card for just a small rarity bump. Alright, the next card we're looking at here, actually I noticed because it seems relatively cheap, it's Forbidden Droplet. So ever since it came out, Forbidden Droplet has been this crazy staple board breaker that's seen quite a bit of play. It does go through times where maybe it's not as good in a specific format for whatever reason, but a lot of the time resolving Droplet can mean that you just win the game, since not only does it negate the effects of your opponent's monsters, it also cuts their attack stats in half. So from taking a look at some OCG lists, Forbidden Droplet is actually something that's popping up in a lot of main and side decks. It's useful either going first or second, and not being able to respond to Droplet is I think the thing that pushes it over the top. One caution against Droplet though is that in the OCG, Artifact Scythe is still legal, so Droplet is used there in part to hit Artifact Scythe, which something like Dark Ruler No More isn't able to do, or maybe your imperms can't be used because you've already committed something to the field, so maybe there's a chance that the card just isn't as crazy powerful here as it has been over in the OCG, but it's still looking like a very useful tech. Now that said, Droplet got a reprint in Rarity Collection 1, so the card is quite accessible. However, we see all of those lower end printings like the Supers, Ultras, Secrets, they're still coming in at $5 to $6 a piece. The strange thing here is that the higher end printings actually feel like they are relatively low in price. The Altis from OTS Tournament Pack 16 are coming in at $65 to $70, while the quarter century printing is just under $50 each. I think that this card is definitely something to keep an eye on as we go into the next format. At the very least, it's something that you guys will want to own a set of in whatever rarity you're comfortable with for when it eventually starts to see more competitive usage. On to the next one, we have Sen Genjin Wakes from a Millennium. This card is a level 8 monster meant to be used in the Exodia deck. You activate it in your spell trap zone and then you pay 2,000 life points, or reveal a Millennium Ankh from your hand, then you get to special summon this card out and search for a Millennium monster. So in the Exodia deck, this card is really good because it searches for either the Shield or for Heart of Blue Eyes, either of which is able to get you access to Ankh so that you can summon the Exodia Fusion, which is sort of the whole point of the deck. However, one thing that's worth noting about these cards is that they can be used as an engine to get bodies onto the field without using your normal summon. A while ago, we saw a small package of 2 Sen Genjin and 1 Shield being used in a Snake Eye variant, basically allowing you to get 2 bodies onto the field without committing your normal summon, but costing you 4,000 life points. We haven't seen this in quite a while, but it can be cool because you can do this to get bodies onto the field without triggering draws for Fuwalos or Perulia, since it summons monsters from your back row, so maybe that's something that we could see play as the format goes on. Anyways, we've talked about Ankh a week or two ago, and everyone seems really convinced that Exodia isn't a rogue deck because it's topped a few regionals. I guess maybe it's like a little bit better than just your average rogue deck, but I definitely don't think I would be calling it a meta choice. However, because of its popularity recently, we've seen Sen Genjin go up to around $7 to $8 for the Ultra, which is a pretty big jump from $2 or so. However, the quarter century printing actually hasn't moved at all. They are still down at around $30 each. This is of course a necessary card if you are interested in playing Exodia. If you're just interested in using it as an engine, I probably wouldn't pick it up now while it's at this all-time high. I'd probably wait until it settles back down to around the $4 to $5 mark. Remember that this card is from the Infinite Forbidden and most likely will not be reprinted until the 2025 tins. Alright, now this is a card I haven't thought about in years. It's Merill Abyss Lead. Abyss Lead is one of the boss monsters for the Merill Atlantean deck. Now back in the day, this card was only run at 0 or 1. The best Merill monster at the time obviously being Abyss Baleen. Abyss Lead is something that was just a little bit too difficult to summon since you had to pitch 3 water monsters to bring it out, but it was something that you wanted to special summon out with your other Merill cards since you could tribute another Merill to rip a card from your opponent's hand. Now fast forward to 2024, and this card is actually still decently useful for the same purpose in the same deck. Between Muling Glacia, Deep Sea Minstrel, and maybe even Triple Tactics Talent, you could use all of these cards to get rid of your opponent's starting hand before they've even had a chance to play, which can be really devastating. With Abyss Lead, this card has its original secret rare printing, which used to only be a couple of bucks, but is now all the way up at $10 to $15 with relatively few quantities available on the market. The other printing is the super rare from Shadows in Valhalla. That's fine if you just want something to play with since it's only 25 cents or so, but the thing about a lot of Merill players is that they all seem to want to play the deck in max rarity, so the secrets actually move relatively easily. The deck can do some really cool things, but it's hard to call it meta because the deck hasn't really performed all that well, aside from a couple of regional tops here and there. Either way, you definitely want to see if you have any of these lying around in your bulk so that you can take advantage of the hype and move them. And finally, the last card I want to talk about for today is Gold Sarcophagus. So Gold Sarc is a pretty old card with a really simple effect. You banish a card from your deck, wait for 2 turns, and then you add that card to your hand. Now, when this card first came out, you would use it to search for cards that you thought could just win you the game on the spot, right? Things like Heavy Storm, Judgment Dragon, things that you would eventually see yourself actually adding back to your hand, resolve, and then win the game. Eventually, during Dragon Ruler format, we finally got to see this card really abused, since you could banish Dragon Rulers and trigger their effects immediately, so you got that immediate payoff for activating the card. And it became a similar thing back when Thunder Dragons got support in Soul Fusion as well. Well, in the current game, we have the Malice deck coming out in December that could potentially really abuse Gold Sarc, since you can banish a Malice monster and then special summon it to the field right away, which effectively means that Gold Sarc is an emergency teleport for the deck. The only thing that's really holding us back here is the fact that Gold Sarc is still limited to 1 here in the TCG. However, we do want to keep in mind that it just went to 2 in the OCG, and most Malice decks are choosing to run this card. That's definitely something that we could see happen here with the next TCG ban list as well. Fortunately, Gold Sarc got a reprint in Rarity Collection 2, so it has all of those amazing low rarity printings for you budget players. Price-wise, we're really only looking at the QCR, since as we've seen over the last year or so, if a Rarity Collection card does get hyped, it's mainly the QCR that's going to be jumping in price. Right now we see the QCR Gold Sarcs at $10 to $12, up a little bit from the $8 they were at before, but I think there's definitely a lot of room for the card to continue moving upwards, especially if it does go to 2 or 3. Obviously, we can't say for sure since we don't know what the future set or ban list is going to look like, but you might want to pick up an extra copy or 2 of Gold Sarcophagus while it is limited to 1 right now, just in case. Alright guys, that is all I have for today's episode. Guys, I think the big thing that we're all excited for is the release of the Quarter Century Bonanza this week. I know Tom and I and some friends, we're going to be doing our classic case battle where we're going to take an entire case of packs, dump them all onto the table, and then just go pack for pack and see who wins. So hopefully I'll be winning that, and make sure that you guys stay tuned for that since I know that's a thing. So many of you guys tell us like at events that you guys are really big fans of that, so hopefully you enjoy. Anyways guys, if you did enjoy today's Market Watch, please make sure you let me know by hitting that thumbs up button. Make sure you leave a comment in the comment section down below. Hit subscribe if you haven't already, and until next time guys, don't forget to hold on to your MST.TV.